Where he lies. Diu meu, ah? Where he lies.
Oh, where he lies, where he lies.
Where he lies.
Ni hao, konnichiwa. Welcome to Foxflix Rice. I am Fox. Yes, I realized that I forgot to introduce myself properly in the last episode, so my apologies. I am Fox, and with me today, as always, is Nathan Anarchy.
Hello.
Who always says hello the same way. I don't edit that in. I haven't asked him to record saying hello once and then just cut and paste it in, I promise. Well, Black Cat, episode 3. So I have to make a kind of small correction. I thought that these were category 3 films because they were marketed as such by some circles in the West back when they came out, but turns out they were category 2. However, we'll get into that when we discuss the film because there was some controversy there surrounding it. So apart from that, Nathan, what have you been watching recently?
Not a great deal, purely because of two reasons. One, obviously watching these films. Two, Elden Ring, obviously, which is taking up basically every minute of my waking hours. I rewatched rather, The Withered Tree, The Adventures of Monjiro yesterday, which is a pretty fantastic Sadao Nakajima film from 72, I believe, 73, maybe. Starring Bunta Sugawara. I probably said that wrong.
Nice.
And
he's been in some cracking roles.
Oh, he's my favorite actor of all time. He's just amazing. And this is probably I want to say it's one of his better roles, but it's not in terms of his range. It's purely his presence. And basically, he's just a wandering gambler, and he's very stoic. It's one of those roles. It's kind of sort of halfway in between a Ninkyo and a Chambara, I guess.
Right. So no Ozawa or Takeuchi action for that kind of role.
Sorry?
No Ozawa or Takeuchi action for that kind of role.
No, no. And he goes to prison. Well, he doesn't go to prison. He gets exiled onto an island for taking the blame for a murder for his friend. And it's just this really dark, nihilistic, really bleak sort of film where everybody's betraying each other. It's just great. But he is just, his presence is, there's no one like him.
Yeah.
There really isn't.
No, I mean, he's a legend for a reason, you know. And I mean, I can't, the problem is, because I know he had a lot of iconic 70s roles. And obviously for me, I haven't seen a lot of the 70s stuff yet. So none ring a bell, but I am like familiar with him, and I know he is genuinely a legend as far as Japanese actors go. He's up there with Sonny Chiba for a lot of people. So
I put him ahead of Chiba personally, but
yeah, I mean, I'm just throwing out a general.
Oh yeah, no.
You know, since most people know who Sonny is, rest in peace. So
absolutely.
Oh, speaking of, I guess we should touch on it. Ko Yan, who directed Diary of a Big Man that we covered in the Valentine's episode, he passed away a week after that episode went live, in his 80s, I believe. So yeah, I left a comment on that video, but yeah, no, he passed away literally the week after that went live. So I pinned a comment on there, but yeah, rest in peace. I mean, his filmography is a trip in itself. The variety and everything he worked on is quite crazy because he was one of the old guard. He'd been around a long time. So yeah, he's got lots of films that I'm sure we'll eventually dip into at some point in the future. No promises, but yeah, that was kind of strange timing. But you know, it was out of nowhere too. I didn't realize he had cancer. But yeah, so the news broke, and yeah,
I didn't know that.
Just reminded me because wasn't it the anniversary of Chiba's death recently? Was it his death or birthday?
Think so, yeah. Yeah, I think it was actually. I don't know without Googling it.
Yeah, because wasn't Chiba COVID?
I think it was linked to COVID. Yeah, I think COVID led to something else, kind of one of those deaths.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, unfortunate. So, yeah, for those listening, just, pay respects and stuff. So, yeah, what else have you been watching? Sorry for that sidebar.
No, not at all. No, like I said, that's about it, I think.
I think I've watched more than you recently.
Oh, speaking of Chiba, I watched Yakuza Wolf again, which is a banger.
That's been on my list for ages, I think.
Oh, it's special.
Is it? Right.
Very spaghetti western inspired.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to check that out at some point. Basically, I'm planning, as Nathan knows, because we've talked about this for better part of a year now. I'm planning on eventually doing this massive dive into the 70s. The 70s isn't necessarily my niche, but I would like to check out things like the Battle series, and Gangster VIP, and God, there's so many like proper classics that I do want to take a look at some point.
Certainly enough to keep you busy.
Yeah, well, hopefully this summer we'll see. Which doesn't mean we'll be covering it on this show, by the way. That's when I'll be starting to watch it. So don't get your hopes up. However, there is something 70s coming next year, and that's all I can say at this stage. So let's see. I'm just looking over my letterbox. What have I watched? Oh yeah, I've finally managed to finish the Outrage series, which were phenomenal. I really, really like them. I don't understand why people don't rate the sequels as high as the first, because I thought, especially Beyond Outrage, I thought it was a better film overall. Coda kind of just wraps things up neatly, so I can get where that might not be a stronger film, because it is very much, when you watch films in a series and it's like the end film just kind of feels like an ending. It doesn't feel like its own self-contained film. So yeah, they were fantastic. I definitely want to cover them at some point. I think for the moment they're my favorite Yakuza movies.
Damn, that's high praise.
Yeah, no, sounds wild, but I think for me specifically, just the creativity behind some of them, even though I know that a lot of them are homages to other things, I get that, but some of the creativity behind it, the cinematography, the framing, the shots, the sound design, and the way they use sound, I was really impressed with, because I've only really ever seen that in Kitano films. I don't think I've seen Miike do something similar, where he uses sound in a similar way, but yeah, it's normally more prevalent in Kitano pictures from what I've noticed. So yeah, I watched those. I watched Agitator, obviously, speaking of Miike, which I absolutely loved.
I just want to butt in for a second here. I've got a bit of a controversial opinion about the Outrage trilogy.
Go on.
I think he should have just directed them. I think they would. I love the films, don't get me wrong. I love all three of them, but I think they'd be better with him just behind the camera.
Who would you put in the Otomo role, though?
I think you could pick anybody.
Because obviously there's a lot of like legends in those movies that were still living, from the Yakuza genre.
It's nothing against Kitano. I just don't think he particularly does much in them.
Yeah, I mean, he does sort of play the bumbling kind of, just the bumbling thug Yakuza, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because he doesn't push himself at all. There's no sort of. I don't dislike him in it. That's not what I'm saying. I just think someone else could have built a bit more oomph to it.
I know, but that's why I ask, who would you put in that role? Because that is a tough one, because I totally understand what you're saying, but equally, Kitano did bring a bit of his signature thing to it when he was on screen.
I think that's my problem with it, to be honest with you. It's too much like other roles he's played, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But I think, I'm a big Kitano fan. I mean, I'm not a fanboy, but I'm a big Kitano fan. I mean, basically the two actors everyone always points out when they're on screen and they're like, it's your boy, as for me, as Kitano and Chow Yun Fat. Those are the two whenever they're on screen. If they pop up when I'm watching with a friend and they don't know, they don't know they're in it. If they pop up, it's like, oh, it's Fox's boy. Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and I also know that that's what Kitano fans like. Now, obviously, for me, I have a different relationship with Kitano, which we'll get into properly someday, I'm sure, because I saw him in his comedy stuff first before any of his Yakuza stuff, or even his classic films, Violent Cop and all of that. So I like Kitano's range more than most people probably. Like I think a lot of people kind of when they go and watch Kitano, they expect it to be Violent Cop Kitano, you know,
Yeah.
or so they have that expectation, which is clearly what he carries over in the Outrage series, which is still well done. But I do think there's kind of an expectation when people see him on screen that he's going to play a particular way, um, which is very unique to him, to be fair, and it is his charisma. But there are some films where it does kind of feel like he's playing the same character each time, just in a different skin.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and there are nuances that do break them apart. But yeah, I mean, obviously the man's doing what he's good at, but I think he's missed when people don't go digging into his filmography. Because he has got some really good ranged roles that are dotted about between them. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, no, it's just an interesting point because I'm just thinking now, who genuinely, who would you fill the role with?
I don't know. Without thinking about it, and this sounds terrible, but who was alive in?
Well, yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Everyone I could think of who might have been able to pull it off was dead, I think. To put it bluntly, I think, because I keep thinking of, I don't know if he was still around. What's his name from Legend of Turmoil?
Oh, Akira Kobayashi.
Yeah, I
I
think
think he's still alive now.
I don't know if he'd still be able to pull it off at his age, but
No, probably not.
I think if he was a bit younger, he would have been a really good fit for that. I think.
I think there's quite a few, maybe Shun Sagata or Hiroshi Tachi or someone like that. I don't know, there's just something about him in them. And like I say, I love Kitano, I love his films. I just think if he'd stayed in the director's chair and put someone else there would have been a bit more. I don't know, it's hard to put into words.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It probably would have had a bit more energy to it. Basically, a bit more of that typical Yakuza energy in a film, versus the more, I call it a somber vibe. Because I mean, it's not to say it is literally somber, but Kitano films tend to be very patient. Like they're slow, then there's a burst of action, then they're slow, then there's another burst of something that happens. It's not necessarily action, by the way. It's just like there's a lot of tension building and a lot of meditative moments, as I call them, where you just, as a viewer, you're just kind of allowed to take it in, and you're supposed to kind of just pay attention and just be in the scene, in the moment. Which obviously is what he excels at as a filmmaker. He's really, really good at that. But yeah, like I said, we'll get into Kitano and stuff someday properly, I'm sure. So yeah, I could talk for hours on him, much like you could with Ricky and stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There will be a time limit on that episode coming up, by the way. just kidding. Just so you're aware. So yeah, let's see. Other than that, oh yeah, I watched that Blade of Immortal.
Oh yeah, you did.
Really enjoyed it. As you know, I've been trying to get my hands on that for a while. It just hadn't happened. Stuff, post going missing. And yeah, it really gives me more confidence that Kimura is going to be able to pull off a solid Nobunaga in the upcoming Toei project.
Yep.
Like I was really impressed with his performance there, and I say this as somebody who saw him in Long Vacation back in the day. So it's like seeing his evolution as he's gotten older, even though I haven't been there for every single step of the way. It just really, really gave me, like I said, a lot of confidence he'll be able to pull that off. Um, So yeah, and still, Chambara films are ruined for me now because I will be expecting hundreds of people to die, and if they don't, I will be like, well, "What the hell was that?"
It's definitely the best live action film for quite a while, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, considering it's a manga and anime adaptation, apart from moments, it didn't really feel like it, which is something I personally praise. I like it when a live action adaptation comes along that kind of does its own thing, but still pays homage, but just it stands alone, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. Was there anything else I watched that was a standout? Oh yeah, I enjoyed. So it's an interesting one because I know you and I rated this film differently, but I really enjoyed that Juice film, Last Drop of Blood.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. Yeah, you said.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I think it was because of the way it was done, because it was the same old story as Yakuza going straight type thing and trying to stay out of Yakuza business. But I think the way it was executed just was different enough that it kind of like really stood with me, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. I've been on a bit of a Yakuza binge, to be honest, and Chambara films as well, because I've got 13 Assassins lined up there to watch.
I think you might prefer that over Blade.
Maybe, maybe. I mean, I had no attachment to Blade going into it, so I mean, I really like the cinematography in Blade. That was something which was a bit of a standout. It was genuinely quite beautiful, even in its violence.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But 13 Assassins is a lot more, trying to think of the right word, serious.
Yeah,
And it's
I
got a
get you.
way better cast.
Yeah, no, I get you. Like I said, I will be firing that up. I'll probably do that tomorrow.
Cool.
And we're
Looking forward to
recording.
hearing what you think of that.
Yeah. Speaking of, 88 just announced their anniversary sale over on their website.
Oh,
So
shit. Yeah, I'm meant to say that, actually.
yeah, so I'm mentioning this because we are covering the 88 release of Black Cat today. Do go check them out. They are they are on fire at the moment as a publisher. I don't care what anyone says. They are cranking them out. I mean, what's up next? We've got Seventh Curse coming out. There's some other things which I can't talk about. But let's just say that this year is going to be a really, really strong year for Hong Kong films in the UK as far as
And I
releases
think,
go.
to be fair to them as well, they kind of, there seems to be this big shift towards getting Hong Kong releases out on Blu-ray over here in the past sort of, I don't know, maybe a couple of years is a bit too much, but Arrow and Eureka and people have sort of jumped on as well. And I think 88 kind of beat them to the punch a bit, really, didn't
Well,
they?
they started out with, I think, so sorry guys from 88 if you are listening. I don't know the full history because the first 88 release I ever picked up actually wasn't an Asian one, it was Hackers. Because that's my favorite film of all time. Which sounds weird, but it's a nostalgia thing, and it's more of a personal thing for me, even though I know
Yeah.
it's not Asian. Yeah, you remember that one? Do you know the one I'm talking about? It was with Angelina Jolie and
Oh, I've not seen it, but I know what you're talking about. I've
yeah.
seen the case.
I mean, it's just pure 90s cheese. It is just pure. That is the most 90s film I can think of as far as Western cinema goes. And I love it. Everything from the soundtrack to the visual design, the story, the way it presents computing, even though it's all wrong, it's
Oh,
just
I'm sure.
so, it's just got that so over the top Hollywood thing that just like, yeah, it works. It's great. No, yeah, but that was the first film of theirs I ever actually picked up. But I think they started leading the charge with the Jackie Chan collection. I'm not sure if that's what came first, sort of the first Chan films they were putting out.
Yeah, I don't know when they did that, but I just really quickly looked up. I remember the first release I got from them was Hex,
Mm.
and I just looked up the release date for that, and it was 2016. So they've been at it a while.
Yeah, no, and but they have really picked up speed the last couple of years with the Asian, particularly the Hong Kong stuff. Um, and like I said, this year is genuinely it's a really strong year for Hong Kong releases because obviously then you've got Eureka doing their thing as well. I think we're quite lucky in that regard. As much as we don't get as much good Japanese stuff out these days, apart from the odd thing that Third Window put out, because they do I think they're releasing a lot more this year than they have done in previous years as well, which is great to see. But in terms of rescuing the classics and the old stuff, definitely you cannot beat 88 and Eureka at the moment. I think they're ahead of Arrow when it comes to Asian, because Arrow's Asian output seems to have dropped compared to previous years, and that's nothing against
Agreed.
Arrow. What Arrow has put out has been great. Like I mentioned, the most recent Arrow release I picked up was Sailor Suit, and it looks amazing. It's really well done. And I know they've got a couple of odds and sod type films coming out. I forget what they're called, because you know them, I think, Nathan, because you mentioned you've heard of them, because I haven't heard of them.
What's that?
The
The
two,
Arrow one.
yeah, aren't they doing two Japanese ones? One of them's I
I
don't remember
don't
what
know.
it's called. I can visualize the cover.
Sleep is to Dream is one of
Sleeps
them.
is to Dream. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, I think.
Sorry, I was just looking at 88's range while you were talking. That was all.
Yeah. No, yes.
There's a lot of Jackie.
Yeah. Like I said, they did a good job of getting the Jackie stuff out. And the thing which I like about 88 as well, which I really do genuinely appreciate, is they tend to try and always include multiple cuts of the film, if multiple cuts exist. So with the Jackie stuff, it tends to be like, okay, you get the Hong Kong cut, maybe you get the American cut, and then you get the Japanese cut if there was an extended Japanese cut, because a lot of people don't realize Jackie was huge in Japan. I mean,
big time.
So a lot of times he had extended cuts for his films there, and also the classic Chan blooper reel for credits actually debuted in Japan first, and it became a standard in Japan. So some of his films that got released didn't necessarily have the blooper reel, but they always did in Japan, because it became a part of going to see a Jackie Chan film over there. So, yeah, interesting.
I know that.
Bit of Chan history there. I mean, again, I'm not super expert on Chan, but yeah. Anyway, I think that's basically it for everything. So the reason why we kind of just rambled a bit longer there is we did watch 3 Black Cat films in preparation for this, because I wanted to cover the series initially. However, I will say this: the third film, Black Cat in Jail, which isn't even an official sequel anyway, it's a spin-off, is not worth watching unless you are a big, big, big fan of Lifetime women's made-for-TV dramas.
And even then, you might struggle.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that it's a badly made film. It's just, it doesn't fit for Black Cat at all. They completely rewrite her character. I mean, so she's still playing an assassin, but she's not chipped, so to speak. Because okay, a big plot point of the Black Cat films is she's a project. Basically, she has this neurochip implanted into her brain. But for Black Cat in Jail, they completely remove that. She's just a trained assassin that has never known anything else.
And it's fucking terrible. And I mean, it's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, I'll admit, I have watched some bad films in my time, and very rarely do I watch a film, especially a Hong Kong film, an older Hong Kong film, that makes me go, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet?
I kept checking the time as well.
Because, yeah, it's just, I think the last one of that for me was 2000 AD. So, yeah, kind of meh.
Avoid it at all costs. That's what I say.
They're spin-offs anyway. The only 2 official ones in canon, quote unquote, are Black Cat 1 and Black Cat 2. There is a reference to Black Cat in the Fatal Raid at the end of the film, the one that came out recently. But that's more of an Easter egg, because Jade Lung was in it. It's not
Right.
It's not an official connection. So basically, today is going to be a 2-film show, pretty much. Okay, so Black Cat 1, directed by Stephen Shin, starring Jade Lung and Simon Yam. It grossed 11 million and something Hong Kong dollars in 2 weeks, which was unusual for a Hong Kong film because apparently back in the day they would only run for a week typically. So that was kind of successful in that regard. Obviously, this is Jade Lung's first big official film. She did actually have her first role was in an obscure Cat 3 film that I managed to find out about. It's called Pink.
Oh, it's not Peeping Tom,
No,
is
it's
it?
Pink Flower or something. Oh, sorry, Pink Lady. So yeah, her first actual movie was an obscure Cat 3 film called Pink Lady. She was a model originally living in Switzerland, studying fashion design before going back to Hong Kong, and she starred in Pink Lady, and then Black Cat was her first big film. She signed to a deal with D&B for 6 years, meant to do 3 movies a year. However, obviously that didn't occur because Black Cat 2 tanked the studio. Now, that's not totally true, but I'll get into that when we start talking about Black Cat True. It did lose money. It definitely lost money. The second one was nowhere near as successful as the first one. But yeah, it was a bit of a sleeper hit in Hong Kong. It won Jade the Best Newcomer Award at that year's Hong Kong Film Awards as well. So yeah, I mean, it's an odd one to talk about because it sort of came out just before the Cat 3 craze really took off. So it came out in an odd time when films were kind of either going full Cat 3, as in, like Anthony Wong levels, and
Just embracing it.
just really going over the top. More rape scenes, more gore, more violence, all of that. Or they were, kind of pulling back. It was like you were either or. So realistically, there's a lot of debate on this film, genuinely, that it should have been perhaps classified as Cat 3. But for whatever reason, maybe they got a good censor on the day when they reviewed it. It was classed as Cat 2. Even though, again, that's a bit of a controversial thing, looking back on it. So, it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't think I've ever come across a Hong Kong film that's been a bit like debated over whether or not it should have been rated full Cat 3 or not.
Yeah, I don't think it warrants being Cat 3 personally.
No, and I mean I can see that. Like I genuinely can. I'm just letting you know kind of what sort of happened behind the scenes kind of. So anyway, yeah, so this film did start out as a La Femme Nikita remake. What happened was the director wanted to remake Nikita, which is kind of interesting because Nikita was heavily influenced by a Hong Kong film, and then Hong Kong film was heavily influenced by Nikita. So it's kind of a bit of a weird circle that happened there. But yes, basically, Black Cat originally started out as it was designed to be a straight remake of La Femme Nikita. Then Disney got the rights to do the American remake that ended up coming out. So that got axed. So basically, they had to go back and retool the script. So they put in some more unique Hong Kong elements and kind of turned it into what we got as in Black Cat now. So yes, which I think was probably for the better, because as much as it would be interesting to have a La Femme Nikita remake, I think the fact that it was able to sort of do its own thing benefited it, especially when you consider this was Jade's first real acting role, major acting role.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact she was able to kind of shine, I mean, she said herself that, the first half of the film, she's basically just being herself. She's not really acting because she was learning on the job.
All right, okay.
So Simon Yam kind of helped her along significantly because she was a bit of a blank slate. She sort of, just took instruction and just went for it.
Yeah.
She did do the majority of her own stunts as well, which is interesting considering how she was not a trained stunt woman. She said that she went into Black Cat kind of unprepared in a way because she didn't train or prep before.
Massive respect to anyone who does their own stunts.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, about 95% of the stunts she did herself. There was 1 or 2 where there was a double used, but yeah, and she did actually get injured during the shoot. there was a stunt in one of the corridors. I can't remember the exact scene where she had to basically outrun an explosion, and something went wrong with the staging, and she was engulfed in flames. So she actually had to go to
crikey.
hospital with burns. So yes,
It's not the. Oh no! Did you say it was in a corridor?
apparently, yeah. I think this might have been a cut scene, because I imagine if the scene went that badly wrong, it might not have been usable.
Right, because I was going to say I've actually got a note. There's a scene later on where she jumps away from an explosion. I did make
That
a
was the
note
car,
here.
I think.
The car, yeah,
The Porsche.
at a wedding, I think.
Yes, after the Jewish bar mitzvah.
That's it. And I did think, wow, that was a little bit too close for comfort. It looked like,
Mm.
but oh, interesting.
So yeah, now I was unable to find more verification on that, because I did try to do some digging, because it was in an old magazine interview where she spoke about it, but I couldn't source the actual interview herself. But yeah, apparently it was a big thing back then. So yes, I hope that's not just hearsay, because I can believe it and I can see it.
Oh, I can believe it.
I wonder if it might have been Black Cat 2, maybe, but who knows? That's the basic rundown on her. As far as the film goes, I find this quite interesting, because you can't really tell unless you know before watching it. But there were 3 different cinematographers on the film.
Really?
Yes, because they shot in different locations, because they shot in HK, they shot in Vancouver and Japan. So they used local crews.
Which makes sense.
That's one of the reasons why the actors vary differently. So, which we'll talk about in a second, but just to clear this up. So, one of the cinematographers actually was a primary cinematographer for Milky Way, and he shot all of the Japanese scenes, which is why I think they look particularly beautiful, because this is quite a moody film. The new transfer on the Blu-ray from 88 Films looks absolutely fantastic. This is genuinely the best the film has ever looked. There is a bit of heavy grain on some of the scenes from the source, but the way they rebalanced the color correction and toned everything in, it looks so much more vibrant than even the Hong Kong Blu-ray that Panorama put out the other year. So I do highly recommend this Blu-ray. If you're going to get any version of this film, buy this deluxe edition, because it is. I've seen it on VHS, I've seen it on DVD, and this is genuinely the best it's ever looked. It enhances the mood of the film, because it's one of those films that the style of it is very visual in its storytelling. So I think anything that enhances that is a good thing.
Agreed.
So yes, that's the basic rundown on it that I wanted to talk about as far as technical stuff goes. So yeah, I guess we can get into this properly then. So Nathan, what did you think of the film? I know this was your first time watching it, wasn't it?
Yes, it certainly was. I think I had the wrong expectations for it.
Were you thinking more girls with guns?
Absolutely. I thought I was going to get something along the lines of Iron Angels or Beauty Investigator or Angel Terminator, something like that. And it really wasn't.
No, this is like a 90s B movie that completely knows what it is, but is still super stylish at the same time.
Yeah.
Because
it was a lot more noirish than I was expecting.
Yeah. It's got that kind of, I call it the European flavor. It's got that kind of, and obviously the Nikita influence shows there, but it's not a full-on actioner, definitely. Still an action movie, but it's just got that kind of, I call it the 90s cheese, because it doesn't really have much of a story to it. It relies more on its style and its momentum to carry the film and the characters a bit. Not to say the characters are deep, but you don't get a lot of exposition in this. You're kind of thrown into it right away. Speaking of which, the English in this film.
Oh boy.
Okay, so there's a reason the English is bad. 2, actually. First, the original script was written in Cantonese and then translated from Cantonese to English.
See, I think that set me up wrong as well, because when you said about the cinematographers and the 3 different local crews, it makes a lot more sense now to me, because, like I said, I was expecting girls with guns.
Yeah.
When it starts, it's I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it. It's much more a 90s B movie.
Yeah, which again is how I personally describe it.
Then it kind of shifts, and I'm fine with tonal shifts, and you have to be watching East Asian films, but this, it sort of kept catching me off guard. It was like starts off this 90s B movie before sort of segueing into this noirish, moody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it again, the La Femme Nikita inspiration shows through here.
I haven't seen it, you see.
But, to be fair, Jade watched La Femme Nikita once in preparation, and then she didn't touch it again because she wanted to kind of infuse more of her own thing into it. And she was getting directed to be quite pouty, at least until she evolves, which we'll get into when we start talking about the plot. But yeah, one of the big thing that's jarring about the English is a lot of what was written in Cantonese, and they kind of did a direct translation of it, which doesn't quite work. Which is why
how you translate. You gonna go down the road and beat your meat?
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, I don't know Cantonese. I only know certain things, but I can tell you from a structural standpoint, a lot of Cantonese insults, when you directly translate them to English, sound super vulgar, whereas they sound quite normal in Cantonese, I suppose you would say. So, like that line you just gave, I guarantee you, I don't know what the translation of it is, but I guarantee you the translation doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't imply that, but the direct translation of it does.
Yeah, no, I'm following.
I mean, an example that was pointed out to me, which makes sense, was, when she's being carried by the police guards to basically court, and she has to go to the bathroom. Okay, we're jumping ahead a little bit. And she's jumping up and down. She's going, I have to pee. I have to pee. I want to pee. I want to pee. The actual Cantonese translation of that is, I want to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom. But the literal English translation of the Cantonese for I need to go to the bathroom is, I have to pee.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm following.
So
I'm with you now.
Tonally, it's kind of a bit rough. And apparently this was a common thing in Hong Kong films back then, where the script writers would write everything in Cantonese and then just do direct translation for the English, which explains where some of the awkwardness comes from. Now, the other layer to this, where the awkwardness comes from, is a lot of times Hong Kong would cast Western actors for their look. So they never really did a screen test. They were just kind of like, an afterthought, like, oh yeah, you look the part, come in. Yeah. Like the trucker guy in the beginning who is wearing a mesh shirt.
That string vest.
He's wearing a mesh vest with a Rambo jacket over it and a trucker hat.
Oh my word.
It's the most random thing. Even for 90s fashion standards, it doesn't fit. Jade is very 90s in this, definitely. All of her fashions. Same for Simon, That's the thing. A lot of this film, which is where it makes sense when Nathan has mentioned it's jarring, I completely understand. Because there are a lot of elements of this film that are really well put together visually. I mean, the set design, the lighting, the costumes, it all really lends to a specific vibe. Again, Nathan calls it noir, which I could totally see. But then you've got these little inconsistencies that just kind of pop up, and it's like Trucker Guy. And it's like, really?
Yeah, I think that's what got me. And I don't think I've laughed that hard in quite some time. I almost wet myself. You mentioning the courthouse scene, which is right at the beginning, so no spoilers or anything, but they're obviously holding her, aren't they, in a holding cell or whatnot. And there's this really butch female prison guard.
Oh yeah.
Right. And she beats the shit out of Jade. Right, and there's like 3 male guards in the security office, and they obviously see it on CCTV or what have you, and because then they couldn't have been professional actors because their line delivery was just like, holy shit.
They're Australian.
Well, they're Australian,
Yeah.
right? And they look at this CCTV and they look at it and they wait like 10 seconds. And then one of them goes, "Oh no, Wendy." Pauses like that. And then they decide to not run, but walk to help their fellow prison guard. And I'm like, what? What's going on here?
Yeah, it does have that. That's that classic 90s B movie. Like, that's just what it is. I mean, that's part why. I will admit, I enjoyed this film more than Nathan did. I had a lot of fun rewatching this. Can't really be said of the sequel, but this just has that whole vibe that it just carries itself all the way through. So it's like it's just a fun watch. This is not a serious film. Do not expect a serious film out of this at all. Or even the best action film type thing. It's just kind of fun. It's silly and fun. But there's a lot of cheese. And I think that's where Black Cat kind of sets itself apart from La Femme Nikita. It was able to infuse kind of that, either intentionally or unintentionally, it was able to infuse that kind of Hong Kong humor a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've talked about in great detail from the last two shows we've done. But it definitely carries that. And another reason why the English is awkward is it's quite clear that, especially when they were in Vancouver and stuff, the actors they were using, there's a lot of clear instances where the Western actors where English wasn't their first language. So it's kind of like you have that difficulty mixed in with the general awkwardness of the translation and lack of direction. So you do have, amongst the English actors, you have this inconsistent thing where a couple will pop up that will nail their roles. They'll just nail it. It's fine. It's great, And then you have kind of that awkward foreign English thing, as I call it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely a weird sort of mishmash of how that came together. But given the fact that they were working in multiple locations with different crews, I think that kind of is partially why that's happened. Because a lot of the stuff that's supposed to take place in America takes place in Canada.
America.
Moving on, the reason why I'm pointing that out to start with, and we're not getting into like plot synopsis, is that is genuinely the first thing you notice in the film is this trucker guy, with a bartender, and they're just both cornball English cheese,
big time.
And Jade, for the first bit of the film, she's kind of supposed to be sort of this unhinged, angry woman who gets treated very badly by circumstances and assholes around her. So she kind of is in this like constant state of fighting for survival, sort of a victim circumstance, because, but it's quite clear she's also got anger issues and a bit of a violent streak, because she just, her defense mode, her survival mode is nth degree, always. It's like there's no escalation. It's just like she's done wrong to, so she immediately goes over the edge, which is fair in some instances because, to be fair, those two guys do treat her like shit.
Oh, absolutely.
But she kills them effectively. Well, kills
very
one
effectively.
Yeah, and it's all done in like a panic and just fits of rage, because I mean she gets beat up pretty badly as well. So it's kind of like the whole thing with her character is, for the first 20 minutes of the film, is she's just this crazy immigrant who is just having all of these really unfortunate things happen to her. It's like she's a pure victim of circumstance, as it were. And effectively, she ends up getting killed by the CIA when she's trying to escape. And then she gets hauled in as a candidate for what's called the Black Cat program, which is essentially, this is where again the 90s-ness of this film shines. It's a microchip that goes into the brain, which they can control her and turns her into a more effective killer. And the they in this question is the CIA.
Of course it is.
So, yes, once that operation occurs, then the premise of the film shifts as to where it becomes about her getting training at the facility, adapting to the chip, but also she has kind of a fight with the chip because the chip does control her, but she also is still very much self-aware and has free will because the whole
she's
point
completely
is
lucid.
yeah, the whole point is the chip is like it's a prototype, it's an experiment. So while it doesn't get into too much depth on the psychology of this, it's definitely the kind of underlying plot point, if you like, where she becomes this elite assassin, you know, through the training and through the help of the chip. Then it's like she's balancing her original personality with this kind of new person she is, so to speak.
Yeah, and she sort of rails against it, doesn't it, she?
Yeah, because of her natural kind of rebellious nature. So, and it's weird because it does get to a point where she kind of accepts it, but she still, her body doesn't. Like she accepts it mentally, but um, her body just kind of, every now and then she gets these really bad cluster headaches that are just, they cripple her, basically. She
Yeah, they
falls
are
over.
bad.
Yeah, it's genuinely. Um, but before we get there, I want to talk about the training sequence real quick.
But that training montage.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a Rocky montage, but there's a lot of crazy stuff in there from like the wild gear that they use to train her that seems like it's out of a 60s American sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
Like sticking what is clearly a vacuum tube in her mouth, keeping her jaw open while she's running. I mean, I feel sorry for her during those scenes. I really, really do.
Or white karate instructors with mullets getting kicked in the nuts.
Yeah. Yes. There's a scene where she's training karate and he's like giving a demonstration to the candidates. Okay. She's the only one in the Black Hat program. She's in a facility that's training general CIA agents. Okay. So she's the only one in the Black Hat program. And this instructor is showing all fancy you know, judo. I believe it's judo he's showing at the time. He's showing all these fancy martial arts and basically he's like, okay, time to fight you, Jade. She gets up, they go to fight, and she just kicks him in the nuts and then bops him on the head and he just falls over.
Simple but effective.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing about Jade's character, I think. She does things in the most simple but effective way. Once she gets a handle on stuff, she really becomes the elite machine when it comes to that sort of thing. I mean, there's a scene where they're laying out all the guns, you know, and she's getting trained about it, and they're explaining like this is a Remington, this is a Colt 45, this is a Deagle, this is an AK, blah 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 blah, and she just looks bored because she's actually already assimilated a lot of it because of the chip, and she basically is sitting there. And but the coolest thing, one of the most 90s things, ice bullets.
What? That was my next note. Oh, you beat me to it. What?
Fucking ice bullets. Yes.
What? Ice bullets. As soon as I paused the film when he said that, and I just sat there scratching my head like, what?
Okay, so again, most ridiculous 90s cheese. We have developed a custom ice bullet that leaves no trace because it melts. Now, here's the irony. You couldn't use that in Hong Kong because Hong Kong's so bloody humid most of the time that if you shot it, it would probably melt before it got out the barrel.
And not only that, but do they not even? I don't even recall them actually using said bullets in the film.
They do. Once.
Do they?
Yes. The assassination of the guy who's bird watching. She pulls out the ice bullet for that. That's why when he's recovered, they say that they can't find any unnatural cause of death.
Ah, yes. Sorry. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, again, jumping a bit ahead there, but yes, there is an ice bullet. It is super. Again, this is just the most 90s thing ever. It reminds me of like Underworld, you know, when they were like, we have developed a new bullet to kill the Lycans or kill the vampires, where it's like it's filled with liquid silver and it doesn't, you know, it just penetrates the bloodstream and it doesn't let go. It's just that kind of cheese, but I love it.
And in case you weren't aware that it was the 90s, her decoration in her room will make you damn sure that it's the 90s.
Yes, all those uncleared. I guarantee you they didn't clear any of those. They didn't get rights clearances to use any of those images or posters.
I can imagine Simply Red, River's Edge. They're just, if you can think of the 90s, MTV, it's on her wall.
Yeah. And of course, her denim booty shorts and her fashions are, pure 90s. So yeah, it's definitely of its time, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there's that. What else? Oh yeah, the Ferrari, the cars, the Porsche and the Ferrari. I think the Ferrari's a 428 GTS.
No idea. I'm not a car guy.
Yeah, I believe it's that. So again, 90s, early 90s cars and stuff. So it's just all over the place. And again, in a good way. This is where this film is kind of like the style carries it. Because another thing which is really good is the soundtrack. At least for me personally, I really enjoyed the soundtrack. It's got that sound of the late 80s and early 90s that certain films had that just kind of scream that time period, outside of licensed stuff, I mean. And there's almost always music playing in the first one, which I think is what helps carry the vibe. Because it very rarely is there no background music, I think, outside of certain dialogue scenes. Because I did notice that was quite obvious to me.
No, I didn't make a note of it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of music constantly. So yeah, again, it just all adds to this kind of what the film ultimately became. So if we get back onto the actual story of the film, so she has the chip implanted, goes through training montage where there is some real training that she does. The whole there's one where she is holding onto a bar and she's being pulled through waves. Apparently that's Navy SEAL training. They really do that. So as well as some of the cheesy that looks like it could have been out as a sci-fi movie, there's some stuff in there that is like based on actual real military training.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I noticed that as well. That's quite a good scene, actually.
Yeah, and she did all of that herself. Again, props to her first film. She wasn't an action star, really. So, the fact she was able to step up and do this without any real training, it genuinely speaks volumes to her. She definitely deserved to win that award that year, I think. So they do that, and then once she's free, quote unquote, the film switches gears again to basically her completing jobs as Black Cat. There's, I think, 3 or 4 assassinations she has to do. I think it's 3.
I don't know. I've only got one written down. To be
is it the bar mitzvah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the bar mitzvah's up first, so you can talk about
that. I mean, it's a legit action scene. It's really well put together, to be fair.
Yeah. Basic premise is Jade is dropped off, and she's got to go to this bar mitzvah and just kill the bride. It's like a Jewish Orthodox Russian wedding that's occurring. And again, it's a bar mitzvah, and she just walks in there and just literally just shoots the bride in the head. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of the extended family seems to have an Uzi.
Yep, that's exactly what I was about to say. Comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, so there's a shootout and a chase, and it is pretty legit. It's no John Woo, but it's still solid. Goes on for a while.
Lots of explosions, lots of squibs.
Yes.
It's good stuff.
Now, I would like to point out the way she shoots a gun. Jade shoots very well. Now, in the beginning of the film, she doesn't shoot well because she's supposed to be untrained, right? Obviously. So she shoots kind of like wildly and stuff. But after she's had her training, she doesn't blink when she shoots most of the time because she's wearing earplugs, which is what a lot of actors do to sort of like conceal that. Chow Yun-fat didn't, by the way, which is why he's partially deaf. But is anyone surprised? I mean, watch one John Woo film.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. That's an interesting
Yeah, so but she does. She's very, very there's a lot of one-handedness. So it's not that she's tactically good, she's just very stylish and controlled. It certainly gives her character kind of a vibe when she shoots. It's a bit like when Chow Yun Fat dual wields, he's got a style to him. Like
Yes.
Jade has a style here. It's a shame it wasn't capitalized on more, but yeah, she's always looks good shooting and holding a gun, genuinely. So props to her for that. What else? So yeah, sorry, back to it.
She escapes on a bicycle.
Yes. Now, is that the scene? Yes, that is the scene. She escapes on a bicycle. She escapes on the bicycle, gets to the car, and the car she's trying to drive doesn't work, which is Porsche. And then that gets blown to hell because Porsches always get blown up in Hong Kong films. Never Ferraris. It's always Porsches.
Can't say I've noticed.
Yeah, it seems to be, especially from that time period. There's a lot of Porsches in Hong Kong films. Seems to be the car of choice, which is quite interesting to me because I noticed little quirks like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like with Japanese films. I kind of always notice the Suzukis and the Toyotas and the domestics, and then all the Sony product placement in the 80s
Yep.
and stuff. Yeah. Speaking of which, there is a fair amount of product placement in this film. And then, yeah, so she escapes. Now, here's something which I find interesting. She goes down some rapids. Now, she did that herself.
Oh, yeah. She did some gnarly stuff in this.
Yeah, so the stunts in this film, they're not Jackie Chan or Sammo Hung crazy, but it's really impressive that someone with no experience did what she did, quite frankly. The big one is this rapids thing. She basically free bodies down rapids. And that was all real. No dummies, no special effects, nothing like that. She got in the rapids and free bodied down. So, again, props to her.
Big props. Absolutely.
So yeah, so that happens. Turns out that's part of her final test. Because she's angry at Simon Yam because the car didn't start, so she thinks that he wanted her to die. Turns out he didn't. Now, Simon Yam in this film, let's talk about him for a minute. I think this is the first film I've seen where he sort of plays a good guy. Because, spoilers, you can kind of argue he's not a good guy.
Yeah, it's a grey area, isn't it?
Because he's working for the CIA and he's like head of the Black Cat program. So, on the one hand, he's nice to her, but equally he's controlling her. So
Yeah.
it's like he's in this really weird, muddled space.
Those are flowers, though.
Yeah, he's the thief that's stealing all the flowers.
Jesus.
The training thing. God. Yeah, so there's a bit of like a weird chemistry thing that builds there. It doesn't go anywhere, though, because after this happens, she's let loose into the world and she ends up meeting a love interest on the job.
Alan. That's right. It's around the he's a conservationist.
Yes.
That's it, right. Yep.
Yeah, so now I found certain elements of this love interest thing kind of cute. It's definitely not the strongest point of the film, nor is it really a serious focus. But this is where, once she meets Alan, who's a conservationist, as Nathan pointed out, he's a bit of a wildlife and bird nut. This is where she starts to be more conflicted to a degree. Because on the one hand, she's got her Black Cat stuff and working for the CIA, but she's fallen in love with a tree hugger. So it's kind of this weird mix where she still does her job, but she also still really cares about him and doesn't want him to get hurt. There's a bit of a push-pull there.
Definitely.
There is chemistry between the two. I, again, wasn't really a big fan of it. There were some cute moments.
Maybe.
Yeah, I know it's not really your thing, this kind of...
It just went a bit too light. They're setting birds free and sitting around watching Chow Yun Fat films, giggling. It was a bit, I don't know, like I said, it sort of came out of nowhere for me.
Chow Yun Fat. Oh,
There he is again.
I cannot escape Chow. Do you know what?
Nope.
Seriously, like I don't know what it is because next month there's a Chow Yun Fat film that's scheduled and planned, but I had no memory that they had an Autumn's Tale in this because that's the film they're watching. And it's just like, you serious? Every single time I watch a Hong Kong film, Chow Yun Fat's
Always.
always. I mean, I sent it to Nathan. I took a picture as soon as he came on the screen. I was like, dude. So I promise I'm not trying to secretly shoehorn Chow Yun Fat into everything. It's just happening. So, yeah. That was a nice Easter egg, though. Speaking of Chow Yun Fat and Easter eggs, this motherfucker is in this film, this pug guy. The head of the CIA who gives her pills to stop her migraines is that motherfucker who doesn't like rice.
Oh shit! That's why I recognized him.
He's the guy from the rice scene in A Better Tomorrow too.
Oh, great eye, mate. Damn, I didn't. I knew I'd seen him somewhere.
I'll never forget that pug guy. He disrespected the rice.
Damn. Holy shit! That's a great eye you've got, mate.
No, I've only got one. Needs to be good.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I am actually blind in one eye. But anyway.
Yeah, that wasn't actually an attempted joke there. It just happened like that.
It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, yes, he's in there. So that's a bit of an Easter egg. Yeah, the guy who basically goes into the restaurant in A Better Tomorrow too and is like, "This fried rice fucking sucks." It's that guy.
That's a great impression as well.
There'll be more of those someday, I promise. But yeah, yeah, he's in there. Sorry, that's completely dead. Poor guy, I swear. Must respect the rice. Sorry, that's completely derailed me now. Where were we?
I've just put my notes away because I've literally only got 2 more things written. I'll be perfectly honest.
Okay.
We were the light lovey stuff.
Yeah, so that kind of becomes this subplot that plays out, and where it becomes tricky is she's with him when she gets assignments. So it's like she has to leave and kind of try and fool him. Now, the reason why they get together, by the way, is when she's on the first assignment she's doing at the nature reserve, which is assassinating the birdwatcher guy.
Obligatory assemble the rifle out of the briefcase scene.
Yes. And that barrel is just perfect. Anyway, so she shoots him with the ice bullet. And when she's coming back, this birdwatcher guy, this conservationist guy, Alan, he takes a picture of her. So basically, initially, she's going to his house to try and kill him because she's seen him. Even though she hasn't, he hasn't seen her do the deed, as it were. That's what brings them together. So, yeah, that kind of is what sets that up. And then it goes, and it's all the usual stuff. There is a plot point about his heart being on the wrong side.
It is mentioned, isn't it?
It is mentioned, and that is important for the ending of the film. And yeah, so then, to be honest, there's not much more after this. It's kind of, she does a couple more jobs, and then this Alan guy is set to be killed because he's essentially getting in the way. So she goes a bit rogue. But the way she does it is she tries to save him initially, but he won't listen, basically. And this is one of the weird things about the relationship. It's kind of done that thing of like, "Oh, I love you so much, so I will always be with you." Even though she's like telling him like, "Stay away from me or you'll die. That's why I'm telling you to stay away from me." But he doesn't listen. So at the end of the film, basically she kills him. Or does she? Dun, dun,
Dun, dun, dun.
She doesn't, because she shoots him on the opposite side of his heart quite intentionally. And then the film kind of ends. I know that's pretty abrupt, but that's where I'm saying it was like almost perfectly set up for a sequel. So,
just one question.
Yeah.
just before that ending, there's a action set piece well, it's not really a set piece, it's quite short, but there's a scene of her in a construction yard where she assassinates someone.
Yes.
And
Before she goes to Japan. Yeah.
Just before she goes, just quick, because I wanted to ask you this question because you watched the extras and I didn't. Did she do the scene herself where she is up in the air?
Yep.
On a crane?
Yep.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, she's really high up. I don't know how
that
many
is
stories
high
it
up.
is. It's like 70 stories or something.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, no, genuinely, Jade is a badass. Like
that is fucking badass. You could not pay me to go up there.
Well, in a minute when we talk about Black Cat 2, it was one of my big problems with it because I don't think she was allowed to, for whatever reason, because of maybe location shooting or something, but I don't think she was able to like show her skill as much in Black Cat 2.
No.
So yeah. Anyway, like I said, we'll get into that in a second. So yeah, so sequel bait. However, the sequel doesn't really follow up on it. It's kind of one of those. This is what's weird about the Black Cat series of films, okay? Even though the sequel is legitimate, as in it's Black Cat 2 is the official one, as mentioned, it still kind of ignores most of the first film.
Yeah.
So we'll get into Black Cat 2 now. We might as well follow in. I definitely recommend Black Cat 1, by the way. Like, if you're a Hong Kong cinema fan, or you're just kind of curious, or you like B-movie cheese, I definitely recommend Black Cat 1. Especially like I said, the 88 films version is really, really well done. So
yeah, go buy it.
Yeah, definitely go buy it. Buy it from Terracotta or buy it direct from them while the sale's on. I believe the sale's on until 28th of March.
29th, I think.
29th? Okay. So yes, definitely check it out.
And just to add to that, sorry to interrupt, I think it's Happy 10, isn't it, the code?
Happy 10, yeah. That's the code. It's their 10th anniversary. So definitely. I mean, again, it's not the best Hong Kong film in the world, but it's definitely one I think any Hong Kong cinema fan should see at least once.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
Don't go in and expect Naked Killer or, as Nathan put it, more of a Girls with Guns full on Moon Lee, Iron Angels masterpiece thing.
Because it ain't that.
It ain't that. No, it's sort of a weird mix in between. But again, I think part of what makes one so strong for me is all of its elements, it mixes well. And it's not, I think its difference is what makes it stand out. Because Black Cat 2 is a bit more of a generic action film.
Agreed.
As we'll talk about more in detail in a second. But yeah, definitely, I think it's an important film in Jade Lung's career, certainly. So check it out. It's pre-Naked Killer. Naked Killer came out the year after. So, it's kind of at an interesting time when it was released, let's put it that way, for Hong Kong cinema. Now, Black Cat 2, okay, that was 1992, starring Jade again and Robin Shu, who was Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat.
There you go.
The live action one. So, yes, Black Cat 2. Okay, Nathan, you can start with this one because Nathan liked it way more than I did on my rewatch. So
I didn't really like it. I just think it's more entertaining than the first one. I think it embraces, I don't want to say madness because that's going to set up the wrong expectations. I think it embraces its stupidity more, if that makes sense.
Kind of. Okay. My big problem with Black Cat 2 is it completely neuters Jade on a number of levels. No, think about it for a second. Okay. She basically becomes a robot.
Yep. Can't argue with that.
She doesn't really act. Okay, so the premise of Black Cat 2 is it opens up with a flashback to Black Cat 1, as in the basic project, and gives you kind of a summary. But then what happens is she gets a new chip in her brain. They decide to memory wipe her and put a new chip in her brain. And when she does, her body actively rejects the chip. So they forcibly finish this operation because the CIA want it. Now, in doing so, it turns her into effectively a Terminator. Not a very good one, but that's what it is. She doesn't
Basically.
she doesn't speak for most of the film. She has no personality. She becomes a robot. Literally, that's what she becomes. She becomes just a killing machine, but not in necessarily a cool, oh my god, she's just this force of nature. She's the thing is the chip is wrong. So she's carrying out orders, but because they screwed up the chip, she's getting it wrong. So it's, and this is the thing, the film focuses more on Robin's character, which for me kind of took the wind out of the film, because I watch a Black Cat film for Black Cat. I don't watch a Black Cat film to focus mostly on a guy, while the female protagonist is reduced to what is essentially a plot device.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, no, I get that.
Now, what is cool about it, I will give it this: the opening scene and shootout is pretty cool.
It's it embraces the 90s cheese way more, and I loved it for that.
Yeah, so the basic premise of this film is it's the CIA versus the Soviets.
That's it.
Yeah, it's fairly bog standard. There's not a lot of special to this. However, the opening action scene is quite memorable because, as Nathan said, it embraces the cheese, because basically there's a Russian scientist who's made it to America and he's hiding, under the protection of the CIA, and it's out in the remote wilderness in the snow on the mountains somewhere, and it's a cabin, and then out of nowhere in comes this terrorist group and just slaughters him and his family.
And they are dual wielding the weirdest looking guns I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're like dual Uzi machine gun type things and shotguns, and they've got the full cheesy night vision goggles. They're completely dressed in black, and
with the weird zoom that goes in and out.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's a fun little scene, and there is a good chase that happens between Robin and the terrorists afterwards, because the terrorists escape on snowboards, and then Robin chases on skis, and there's a shootout while on skis and snowboards, which I don't think I've ever actually seen before, because there's a part where there's a jump and one of the snowboarders does a trick while looking back holding an Uzi and just firing.
Oh my god, I've got that written here. Everyone should indie grab when escaping via snowboard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it's in India, isn't it? And yeah, so this is the weird thing about Black Cat 2. There's a couple of moments that it really shines, but they're more moments sprinkled about a generic actioner.
Yeah.
And again, for me, the biggest problem I have is the reduction of Jade. Because let's be real, Jade and Simon carried Black Cat 1. Robin is no Simon Yam.
That is not.
And the film genuinely focuses on Robin, because
in his defense, he can throw down.
Yeah, he can. And that's where it is like, it's a bit weird, because when the stage is set and the camera like shows what's happening, because that's another thing, the editing style is slightly different in 2. There's a lot of trick editing done for certain sequences where it's like the cutaway thing happens, so you don't actually see what happens, it's inferred. The overall plot, again, is the chip is malfunctioning, and it's just Jade is just being put through the ringer, because the CIA, the guy who's running the CIA, is like, nope, we need this chip to work. We need this chip to work. I need her. And the whole premise is the doctors are going, we haven't ran any tests, we haven't done this, we haven't done that. She's not ready for the field. It's an experimental thing, and of course they're constantly being overridden. And it's like she's killing the wrong targets because.
I'm sorry, I just.
Well, this is the thing. Her free will side is completely erased in 2. So it's like she doesn't even have any.
Gone.
Yeah, like this is where I'm saying it's like a robot.
She's even got a weird digital heads-up display thing.
Yeah.
That they introduce and then never do anything with. It's odd.
Yeah. And she's got an off button. There's literally a remote that is designed to turn her off. Yeah.
The laser, I love that laser. If she misbehaves, press this.
Yes.
What the fuck?
Now, the saddest thing about this to me is like there are a couple of scenes where Jade is allowed to do her thing. And oh my God, does she do her thing? Like the first encounter with Robin, she kicks his ass.
Yeah.
And that fight scene is really well done.
Yeah, I don't know whether she had training or anything, but she does handle the there's a lot more hand-to-hand fighting in this and some wire work and whatnot. And she handles it well.
Jade's approach to action films after Black Cat, the first one, was she always did training beforehand because she learned.
Fair play to her.
Yeah, because obviously, like the first one, she didn't, she was just going in blind basically and trusted and relied on everyone else. But yeah, anytime she did an action role after, she trained beforehand and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, the standout scene to me in Black Cat 2, because there really only is one, is the scene in the factory.
Yeah, okay. There's a moment that makes the film for me, but I'll say that.
Go on.
Huh?
Go on.
It's you've already said that she malfunctions, doesn't she?
Yeah.
So the basic premise is that these terrorists that they're after take a special radioactive drug that enhances their combat ability.
Yeah, because Cold War.
Yeah, of course. And she's supposed to be able to track radiation through this weird 90s HUD that she's got now. So this is really early on, and this is just such a what the fuck moment. They're tracking him. They're tracking someone, and they end up outside the mall. Do you know where I'm going?
Yeah, I know.
And she swings in, right? And this isn't a spoiler because if you look anywhere, anyone that's ever written about Black Cat 2 has talked about this moment.
Honestly, it's pretty hard to spoil this film. There's nothing really to spoil. Sorry.
No. So she swings through this mall. I can't remember what she's swinging on. I think it's like
it's a decoration that's hung up because the mall's done up.
Like bunting or something.
Yeah.
She swings, she lands on the ground, and she pulls out her pistol and blows away an old aged woman.
Yeah.
And her blood and brains splatter a clown that stood behind her. It's amazing.
Yes. And then, of course, the whole thing is the old woman was innocent because it turns out she'd had cancer treatment. And anyone who's had cancer treatment displays the same radiation levels as these Russians do.
Why did you kill my mom?
Which Russia already knows, by the way, when they go over to get help from Russia. Again, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense into, and it's just at the insistence of the CIA. And yes, the poor woman's daughter is there, and she is like, as Nathan said, "Why did you kill my mom? She didn't do anything."
I loved that scene. It was amazing.
And the whole thing is Jade's just standing there. She's not even processing it because she's Terminator. And that's what's odd. There's like more Terminator. It feels like the first film was like, Nikita inspired. But then the second film feels like it was kind of more Terminator inspired.
Definitely.
Because it's just, they do that first person shot through the HUD. Where it's like targeting, target found, and again, there's not much to it. It's kind of a generic actioner, to be completely honest.
Now you mention it, actually, I'm searching through my notes here because full disclosure, I watched this a week ago and I have a terrible memory. Doesn't she actually do a thumbs up like Arnie did?
I didn't see that.
Perhaps I'm wrong then. I'm just looking through my notes and it's not here. No, I must be wrong. But no, sorry, back to the factory fight, which you're right, that is the standout.
Yeah, because Jade, it's the first time I think it might have been her first real hand-to-hand scene, and she just kicks ass. It's really good. Like, it's
It is good.
surprising. Because obviously she wasn't originally known for her martial arts. She was more known for stunts and guns, but she really, really pulls this off. And at that point, she's still being pure Terminator a bit, but she's kind of getting some of herself back, kind
Yeah.
of. And this is what was disappointing to me, is there's this fight scene in the factory where it's very Jackie Chan in the sense of it's like, Jade and Robin against terrorists. It's like they've gone into the lion's den and they're fighting. And the stunts are good, the choreography's good, it's all solid. And then it's like Jade starts to come out of her shell a bit. She starts to get a bit of herself back. And then there's a lot of downtime between her and Robin, where he's kind of like, she's a human being. So he's trying to get her to be more herself. And then in come the CIA, they drug her, take her back, and operate on her again and completely undo everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Yeah,
like,
no, I totally understand.
like I get it. I get why it's done, but
Story-wise, there's nothing to it. It's bullshit.
yeah, and it just completely, like I said, it completely neuters Jade and her character. It turns her into this plot device. Because again, most of the sequences focus on Robin and his perspective on things and what he's going through and what he's going to do and stuff. Whereas Jade was the driver in the original film. Jade is very much just a plot device here. She's literally pure plot device. And again, she does have some moments where she's able to shine. But spoiler, she dies at the end. She does. It's considered to be actual death. But obviously, they'll revive her, eventually. But it's like she accomplishes her mission, but she kills herself accomplishing her mission.
Yeah, it's really poorly thought out.
No, I'm just saying, and it feels kind of anticlimactic. I mean, I get it's supposed to be drama, and and I know the whole thing is like, well, she's not dead anyway because they'll bring her back to life like they did the first time, but it's still the ending sequence, the finale sequence isn't that memorable in 2, I don't think.
No, it's the ballet, isn't it?
The ballet into the car chase at the airport.
That's right. Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. Like I said, it was a week ago, and it's just come back to me. Yeah, the absolute end, the very final bit, is crap.
Yeah,
with the plane.
So it's kind of, I don't know. I enjoyed it more when I was a kid, but I think the reason why I enjoyed it more when I was a kid was just because of the Terminator references, and it was a generic action movie.
Yeah, which is what I enjoyed.
Yeah, which is where, like I said, I could see 2. 2 is a better generic Hong Kong action film. 1 is more unique.
Yes.
Again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend 2 to anybody personally. However, if you're a completionist and you go in expecting that too and want to see that kind of film, then yeah, go stick it on. But I mean, it's not going to win any awards. It didn't. As we mentioned at the top of the show, it kind of tanked D&B because it earned half as much as the first one. It only earned about $5 million.
Which is shocking.
Yeah. And now here's the controversy around it killing D&B, the production company. So obviously it cost them money, but the weird thing is, when I did some research on this, the primary owner of D&B sold the company off So, and the thing is, he was kind of known for jumping around production companies. He would
Right.
set one up, be successful, go set another one up, go be successful, etc. And one of the partners, I can't remember which one, he actually just got a big stake in a different production company that was going really well. So after Black Cat came out, there was another film in production, but they just suddenly dissolved the company, which was kind of unfortunate because there were a lot of Hong Kong actors and actresses at that time that were under contract with D&B that were suddenly free, which is kind of a good thing. But when you consider that this is also the studio that Sammo Hung did some of his best work with, and they put out the Yes Madam series,
Yeah.
and they discovered some other big action stars at the time, it's kind of sad. But I couldn't find anything concrete because there is the theory out there that the film tanked the company, which I do believe because it wasn't successful, because the official statement that was put out was that they no longer felt that they could be competitive in the current environment, so they were disbanding. However, in terms of it necessarily burying the company as to where they couldn't have continued unless they wanted to, I'm not sure about that, because it seemed like more of a decision because the guy was like, oh, well, I'm being really successful over here, so let's just cut and run while we can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Because there is conflicting stories out there on it. So,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do too much research, to be perfectly honest. But I did see it mentioned somewhere that it was directly referenced that the movie tanked D&B. But
yeah, I mean, I think they lost enough money on it as to where it hurt, but I'm not sure if the film coming out, they were in financial straits at that point, because Black Cat 1 was successful and they basically moved into Black Cat 2 right away. So, it's a hard one to pick up, especially with a lot of the older records of that time being wiped from the internet.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but it's an okay film. Again, for me, as Black Cat sequel, it didn't deliver. But like you said, as a generic actioner, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, if you like stupid 90s action movies, I think there's fun to be had with it. Over the top villains with stupid guns and stupider hair and sort of weird military technology, like the Russian guy swinging around on kind of a Spider-Man web slinger thing, and there's some absurdity to it that makes it fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is totally valid because it's true. It's there. That's not just a random opinion thing. It's just, again, if you're going into it expecting Black Cat.
And one interesting thing, and maybe you'll know, maybe a listener will know, but I did make a note on this. Now, I'm no expert on bullet time, but there is one instance of bullet time in this movie. Now, given it was 1991, no,
Wasn't the first.
Was it not the first?
No. So, and there's an interesting thing at that time in Hong Kong. There were a lot of filmmakers overusing slow-mo and overusing those kinds of shots.
See, I don't think I've ever seen another Hong Kong movie use bullet time quite like that. Proper bullet time, just the bullet.
Full contact.
Full contact. That's a very good shout, actually.
And Ringo Lam has done it in another film. I can't remember. He's done it in another one of his that was pre-full contact. Can't remember which one.
What year was Full Contact? I didn't think of that, actually. I was talking
after.
more just in a general action sense. Because I mean, if you talk to random Tim on the street and say bullet time, they'll say The Matrix.
Yeah, obviously. But I know Ringo Lam used it in another one of his films before Full Contact. I just can't remember which one. So I swear I've seen it. Because obviously last year I ended up watching a lot of Ringo Lam, didn't I? The director films. I think he was my most watched director last year. So yeah, it was definitely one of them. I just can't remember which one. Because it was really quick too.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's still a good eye because I get where you're coming from. Because like you said, most people, when they think of bullet time, they throw The Matrix in there. So
yeah, and I know that there's earlier examples, but I just didn't think I'd ever seen it before in anything before 91.
Mm.
Oh,
No,
92, sorry.
there's a couple of examples in the late 80s in Hong Kong, but I can't remember them specifically. I'd have to go looking again. But I know I've seen it in some in my collection. So, and I know it exists. I just don't know exactly where, because it's not something I took a log of. But yeah, I mean, I know at that time in general, around the time Black Cat 1 and 2, there was a bit of a overuse of slow-mo in Hong Kong cinema at that time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
which where I think Black Cat did it well, the first one at least, because they didn't overplay their hand with it. It was used effectively rather than just kind of like cool effect.
Cool effect, bro. Yeah,
Cool
I
effect,
know what
bro.
you're saying.
We need 10 minutes more of it.
I wonder what that Ringo Lam film was then. You got me curious now.
Yeah, like I said, I'd have to watch it again because it's been months since I watched a lot of the Hong Kong stuff.
Yeah, because both the Lambs, I've seen quite a good amount of their stuff, so I'm curious.
Yeah, no, like I said, I have to have a think as well, but maybe it'll come to me offline. Who knows? Yeah. So I kind of knew this episode would be shorter because we didn't have as much to talk about across certainly the third film and the second film. So, again, there's not as many.
We were expecting. I think we were expecting the second and third film to be good.
Yes, I certainly was, because I had fonder memories of the second. But again, watching as a kid, obviously, you have a different kind of view on stuff. Simple stuff is cool.
I don't know. I'm still like that. So
no, it's all good. But don't worry, next month's episode will make up for it. Now, the question is, do I tell you guys what next month's episode is, or do I just tell you when to tune in? What do you think?
Well, I think go for it, but I'm purely saying that because now you've put me on the spot. I don't know what next month is.
You've forgotten?
I've forgotten. Whatever it is, my mind's gone completely blank. Oh, fuck, of course it is. Sorry. Yes. Right. Okay. Well, now you've just got to think about whether to edit that part out.
So, yes, thank you everyone for listening. Again, apologies about the episode not being as long or as in-depth as usual. But again, the Black Cat series is kind of a unique thing to cover. So definitely pick up the 88 Films Blu-ray. Highly recommend the first one. Second one, if you're curious and you can import it, go for it. But don't bother with the rest. And yeah, next month we'll make up for it, as we'll be covering something very special on the 16th of April. So tune in for that. And I will be hanging out in chat. Nathan might be there if time allows. And we'll talk to you guys as the episode is airing. So thank you so much. Nathan, anything you would like to add?
Nope. Thank you for listening as always. Go buy that Blu-ray and look forward to the next episode because it's going to be a doozy.
Winnie nice.